You know, there are moments in history that change absolutely everything. Well, between the 15th and 17th centuries, we hit one of those moments. A few European nations decided to sail off the edge of the known map, and in doing so, they completely, and often brutally, redrew it. This wasn't just about adventure, not at all. It was an explosion of ambition, technology, and yes, violent conflict that literally forged the world we live in today. So let's get into it and break down how this all went down.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big why. What was pushing these explorers out to sea in the first place? Then we'll look at the surprisingly corporate side of things, the business of conquest. From there, we'll witness the dramatic fall of two massive empires and uncover the secret weapons that made it all possible. And finally, we'll connect all those dots to the world we know today.
So first things first, what could possibly make nations like Spain and Portugal risk it all? Ships, money, lives, on these incredibly dangerous voyages into the total unknown. Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was this perfect storm, a powerful mix of three huge motivations. It really all boils down to the three G's: God, gold, and glory. First up, God. There was this intense, deeply felt mission to spread the Christian faith to every corner of the globe. Then, of course, there was gold. The promise of unimaginable riches, spices, silks, and precious metals was just irresistible. And finally, glory. This was an era of fierce competition. Kings and queens wanted power, they wanted prestige, they wanted to be remembered. And these three things together, they created this incredible engine, fueling a mad dash to explore and claim the planet.
But, having the motivation is one thing. You actually need the tools to pull it off. And two pieces of technology were absolute game changers. First, you've got the caravel. This was a new kind of ship, smaller, way more agile, and it could sail against the wind. This ship basically unlocked the open ocean. And then there's the astrolabe. This clever device let sailors figure out where they were by using the stars. So, for the first time, you could sail out into the vast, empty ocean and actually have a good chance of finding your way back.
And make no mistake, these expeditions weren't just a bunch of guys going on an adventure. Oh no, these were highly organized, state-sponsored business ventures. They were built on a legal and financial framework designed for one thing: profit. At the core of the Spanish operation was a special kind of document called the capitulaciones. The easiest way to think of this is like a royal contract, basically a license to conquer. The Spanish crown would grant a person, say Christopher Columbus or Hernán Cortés, the official right to go out, discover, and subdue new territories, all in the name of Spain. It laid out exactly what they could do and, more importantly, what they owed the crown in return.
And what they owed was a big deal. The contract always included the Quinto Real, which literally means the royal fifth. And for the monarchy, this was pure genius. See, the conquistadors and their private backers took on all the danger, all the financial risk. But the crown? It was guaranteed a 20% cut of all the loot, gold, silver, you name it. It was a completely risk-free investment for them.
Just think about that number for a second. 20% of everything. Every single piece of gold, every silver bar, 1/5 of it went straight into the king's treasury. This number right here, this is the economic engine that drove the entire Spanish Empire. It wasn't just about faith or fame, it was a state-sponsored business model designed to generate insane amounts of wealth.
Okay, so with the motivation, the technology, and the business contracts all in place, the stage was set for one of the most dramatic and devastating collisions in human history. Let's zoom in on the two most famous examples of how this all played out in the Americas.
It's kind of stunning when you see it laid out like this. The two biggest moments happened just about a decade apart. In 1521, a tiny force led by Hernán Cortés managed to bring down the massive Aztec Empire in modern-day Mexico. Then, just 11 years later, Francisco Pizarro pulled off a similar feat, capturing the leader of the sprawling Inca Empire in South America, which of course brings up a massive question.
How did they do it? I mean, seriously, how could a few hundred soldiers defeat empires that had millions of people, complex societies, and huge armies? The answer is complicated, and it goes way beyond just guns and swords. This really is the million-dollar question of the whole era. It doesn't seem to make sense. But it turns out the conquistadors had several aces up their sleeves, and some of their most powerful weapons were the ones you couldn't even see.
All right, let's break it down. First, yes, the obvious stuff. They had steel armor, steel swords, and early firearms. That gave them a huge advantage in a fight. But that's not the whole story, not even close. Their deadliest weapon was completely invisible: disease.
Smallpox and other Old World illnesses, which the native populations had zero immunity to, just ripped through the Aztec and Inca empires. It killed millions, completely shattering their societies. And third, the Spanish were brilliant strategists. They figured out pretty quickly that these empires had enemies. Cortés, for example, would have been crushed if he hadn't made allies with thousands of warriors from other groups who were tired of Aztec rule.
So, the fall of the Aztec and Inca empires wasn't really an ending. It was the beginning of something entirely new. The shockwaves from these conquests spread across the entire globe, creating a new world order that was profound and permanent. So to actually run these massive new territories, the Spanish set up something called the encomienda system. Now on paper, it sounded almost noble. A Spanish colonist was granted land and a group of indigenous people, and in return, he was supposed to protect them and teach them about Christianity. But in reality, it was basically a system of forced labor, a brutal machine designed to squeeze every bit of wealth out of the land and its people.
And the long-term impact of all this? It truly altered the planet. We got the Columbian Exchange, this incredible transfer of plants, animals, and diseases between the old world and the new, changing what people ate and how they lived forever. All the silver from the Americas fueled a brand new global economy, connecting Europe and Asia like never before. Of course, the human cost was just staggering, a demographic collapse among indigenous peoples. And ultimately, all of this set the stage for the next few hundred years of European dominance on the world stage. So the caravels are in museums now, the conquistadors are just figures in history books. But the world they created, the global trade routes, the cultural connections, the power imbalances, that's still very much with us. Which kind of leaves us with one last thing to chew on. The age of discovery might be over, but the world it built? We're all still living in it.